This is crazy. This is crazy. This is crazy.
Everywhere you turn, it's the same old sports talk, the same headlines, the same news, and the same boring information. This podcast is here to change all of that. We bring you hot sports takes, winning sports betting strategy and picks, reliable gaming industry news, and breaking interviews with some of the biggest names in sports business. My name is Ryan Newpel, and welcome to the Noop Sports Show. Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Noop Sports Show. I'm your host, Ryan Newpel, here with you each and every show. We are very, very blessed to have a special guest with us today. We are joined by Avi Howard, the CEO of Usability Digital. Avi, are you with us?
Yeah. Hi, Ryan. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely, Avi. It's my pleasure. It's I've been looking forward to talking to you on here. I know we chatted a few weeks back or a few days back, and I couldn't wait to have you on the show. So thank you again for joining me. How's everything going in your world?
Yeah, everything's great. I'm here in Central Europe. Of course, we're dealing with the aftermath. Well, at least here, it feels like the aftermath of COVID, which I believe they handled quite well here. They started to open the borders, so we're starting to get a little bit of freedom back again. Life went back to normal in the last few weeks, and people here are actually starting to talk about summer holidays across the border. So I guess a bit of normality.
It's so nice to be back a little bit to normal. I mean, I'm the same way, with this COVID stuff. I mean, everything's been a little different the last 3-4 months, but we're starting to get some sports back. We're starting to talk, things are opening up a little bit here and there, and same with me as well. So, I'm really looking forward to that, and hopefully. So first, I want to jump right into what you do, what Usability Digital is. Can you give me a little background, or I guess just intro to what you guys do and what you've, I guess, been in the iGaming industry?
Sure, yeah, and thanks again, Ryan, for giving us this opportunity to explain about ourselves. So Usability Digital is I think we find a unique consultancy in the iGaming space. It focuses on delivering complex business and technology projects solely in the gambling industry. Our services are relevant and useful for both suppliers and operators, and they can also support newly established regulatory bodies such as state regulators. We've been working as individuals in the industry, I think in average about 15 years. I'm in the industry for 15 years now, had many years at Playtech in a few locations around the world, and work brought me here to the Czech Republic. I spent a lot of time in England as well. We are three partners in the business, and together with Sean Carroll and Rob Henderson, we founded Usability Digital early this year. Or kind of end of last year, but we've been working together running programs in the industry pretty much since 2010.
That's amazing. I mean, so you have some experience in this space. That's pretty cool that you're able to kind of start your own thing and go from there. Yeah. Tell me a bit about the services, I guess. What are some of the consulting services that you guys offer?
Yeah, so as I said, we were kind of individual consultants, but always work together. So I always get called out to run a large piece of work of integration or platform migration, but I always had my team. Even though we all had our own kind of individual companies, I always use the same team of about 10, 15 people. So we've been kind of roaming around different projects around the world for the last 10 years. So as it happens, earlier this year, we've completed, I should say, epic 2.5 years with William Hill in the US, where we led a large program of work for them where we oversaw the platform development, integration, the licensing and certification, and eventually launched their sportsbook in New Jersey twice. They first went in with a initial deployment of what we call a tactical solution. It was a quick and dirty platform that they had that was working. It took time to get it out to market, but they knew that they would like to upgrade that to something more robust that will take them into every state in the US. We all know that William Hill have brilliant market access in the US, and they have great partnership deals. And it's that platform that we delivered for them end of last year that now help them go around the US and bank on these partnerships. So we run this large integration projects on behalf of customers that give us the opportunity to do so.
That's amazing, and I can imagine that's quite a big role, especially when you're talking about United States and kind of the entry into the United States. There's so many different, I don't know if rules are the right thing, but there's so many different licenses and different rules in different states and things like that that you kind of got to go through. I'm assuming, you guys are experts in that space and you're able to come on board and really help these companies and operators kind of come in and kind of solve that for them, right? I mean, that's kind of what you're there for.
Yes, definitely. And you touched, Ryan, on a very important point. There's a lot of companies coming to the market, but they're not really aware of what they're getting into. It might be companies that have done well in Europe, but they look at the US as one market. They say we're getting to the US market, but quickly everybody realizes that the US market is no such one market. It's a collective of markets that is made up by states. Every state regulator pretty much want to do their own thing and have their own regs. Of course, there's some similarities. Some states are taking, copying stuff from each other or relying on, let's say, if you're licensed in this state, you can get a license in another state. But it's very difficult to come into the market and look at all of it as one market and prepare for the US as a whole. Companies really need to look at what their market strategy is, which states they're going to go into, and depending even on the sequence they go in, they need to build their platform accordingly. There is some variation in the requirement between different markets, and we find that customers don't prepare properly for that move, and they're going into their first licensing realizing that they have still a lot of gaps in their platform because they just had something else in mind. So there's a few problems that we see, problem statements that we believe that we're coming to solve. One of them is that many B2B and B2C companies are outside the US. They're coming to this exciting market. Companies that we didn't think before, like Betson and Tipico and Nugioco and other names that we heard recently that are making the move into the US. They got a market access deal and they're making a move. But the reality that even the most established companies that run projects elsewhere, they're usually not equipped to run such big projects, and they struggle to deliver large technology projects, and let alone in an environment where they're working in new territory with a strict regulator, even a new regulator that they're learning themselves. Their headquarters are usually in Europe, and they're establishing a new team in the US, so they're far away from their people. And we're aware in some cases where operators are trying to launch their first states in 2018. That shouldn't happen. So we're trying to help companies with their I'd say the complexity of the work, and often them underestimating the complexity of the work that is coming towards them when they're going into the US market.
Sure, and a lot of times, I mean, that's what it's all about, right? When you get into business, you're kind of starting your business, and there's so much that goes into it. There's just so many different moving pieces and things, and that's why I think consultants like yourself and businesses like yourself exist to really tackle those specific areas that people need help with. And so I commend you guys for what you're doing. What are you seeing, or what are you? I mean, this is more of a personal question, but what are you thinking for the United States? Are you thinking that several more states are going to be going live here in the next year or so, or are we kind of at a standstill, especially with this COVID halts? What are your outlooks on the United States as a whole from a betting perspective?
I think that from what I read, and of course I don't have any crystal ball, more than anybody else, but from what I can see, I think it's an interesting question, Ryan, because I think that COVID will actually expedite the legislation of a few more states that probably didn't plan to be this year. I think that there is a much needed tax revenue, much needed to be collected tax revenue to help with the impacts of COVID. that I think those states that were sitting on the fence or were looking at a longer bill process, we hear that now we're probably going to make take a shortcut and try to introduce this in an expedited manner. So I believe that this summer and the next few months probably going to be a bit busier. I also know quite a few operators in New Jersey that wanted to go in only with sports betting initially because that was their main product, and now they regret that they didn't go in with iGaming and casino to make up for the lost revenues from their brick and mortar casino. So I know quite a few are now in the market of rushing to integrate an iGaming solution and put them in front of the DG to get that certified while people are still in lockdown in some places.
Sure, I think that's a great answer, and of course, none of us know the correct answer to that question, but I was curious what your opinion on that was. So thank you for sharing that. So give me a little bit of, I guess, the steps. How would somebody, if they're looking forward to working with you guys as a company, what's the process like? How do they kind of start working with you, and what's that process look like throughout the whole process?
So we have a few kind of strands of or scenarios where we engage with customers. So we offer our services to suppliers, that software providers and operators, and also to some regulators. If we take an example of a supplier, so if a supplier wants to get into US for the first time, whether it's a big one or a small one, we usually conduct a what we call a gap analysis. So we take the regs that we know well, and there's also the GLI standards, which are very commonly adopted by many state regulators. We know there's regs well, and we get updates all the time. We compare what we know from the regs with what we see. We study the customer systems, the business processes, and usually takes us somewhere between 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the size of the platform and the complexity, to establish what the gap is. We help, with our gap analysis, we tell the customer what gaps we saw in the system, and if they would like to obviously go and breach those gaps and develop them. There's a lot of things that go beyond product development. For example, the business processes, the regulators are looking to see the internal controls, as they call them, which is a documentation of how the business is being run. Some companies just don't have it written down, and it's important to document the business blueprint. We help with that as well. So if we see that these processes are not written anywhere, we help conduct this very massive piece of work that goes throughout the entire organization and document, how they handle customers, how they handle data, how where the servers are located, and the security and all that. There's a lot of details in what the regulator wants to see. So we are doing this kind of an audit, and if we are being instructed to move to the next stage, then we then go on and deliver all of this on behalf of the customer. If we take the example of William Hill, they trusted us to manage all of this for us, and I'm glad that companies are doing it, because essentially companies need to be focusing on getting more customers. They need to focus on marketing and retention, and they need to focus on the business and operation, and not on the pains of taking on a new rollout. So we help with all of that. So that's in the case of a supplier. In the case of an operator, we can do the same and tell them where they stand versus the regulator requirements, and also look at their technical stack, which is usually supplied by a third-party supplier, it be Cambi or SB Tech or whoever the supplier is, and we help them establish the gap. And if we are instructed, we are taking the project to go all the way up to live, and we usually stay a good few months after that to make sure that we help them train and hire and train more employees and establish an operational hub. So the establishment of new offices abroad is a big piece of work that everybody is going through, especially newcomers to the US. They need to do all the technology work, but they also need to deal with massive hiring of people, training them, getting new offices. We know of some companies that even throughout all of this, move offices from one part of the country to the other side. These are massive pieces of change that usually it's a lot for every company to take on their own.
Sure. Sure. Well, it sounds like you guys have a very detailed process and definitely know what you're talking about. That's I mean, that's the first step to running any successful business. So props for that. Sounds like you guys are well on your way there. Before we
Thank
go
you.
here, I got a question for you. I know there's a lot of listeners in this show, maybe starting up or trying to kind of penetrate the market here in the US. Do you have any tips, or maybe one tip or two tips on how they maybe can, achieve successful market entry here into the US before we go?
Yeah, definitely. I think I would say that don't underestimate project management. I know it's a big word, but project management shouldn't be underestimated when it comes to deal with launching a new state or taking new technology and specifically migrating from one platform on the other. We hear a lot of things now about established brands potentially moving away from the technology they have now to other companies. We can't name any names, but we believe there's going to be now a cycle of some migration from one platform to the others. This is Ryan, the holy grail of complexity. Moving to a platform, changing a platform in a regulated environment is the biggest undertaking anybody can do, and the regulator has a very keen eye on this. We recommend to them to engage and with their suppliers as early as possible, plan as early as possible, and work collaboratively with all the parties. Very important to establish realistic plans and not just have a date that you want to go live. It's good to be ambitious, but it's very important to build a plan, including the regulator, that they all buy into the dates that you want to go live. Just by setting a date in stone and not doing the finding, if it's really doable, can create a lot of disappointment. We have a lot of experience, and we welcome any companies that are going through that process to consult with us. I think we can add a lot of value into their planning and the rollout into the US.
Amazing answer. Avi Howard, the CEO of Usability Digital. Avi, if anybody wanted to get a hold of you, how would they reach you? Do you have an email or some way of contacting you guys here going forward?
Yeah, the best way to reach us is at info@usabilitydigital.com. We're also going to be next week. We're pleased to announce that we're going to be exhibiting on the SBC Digital North America. It's first time for us doing something like that. I'm sure you know that show, Ryan. So under the circumstances, I actually believe it's a good platform. So we'll have a booth there for the next for 3 days next week, from Tuesday to Thursday, for whole 3 full days. It's there's enough opportunity there to connect with us in a various ways. So looking forward to the listeners of this show coming to the SBC North America and connecting with us.
Yeah, I mean, I'll piggyback on that. That event's going to be amazing. We're also going to have a booth. So, hey, Avi, maybe you and I will have virtual booths next to each other. People can pop in and say hello to you, and then come say hello to me as well. But I encourage all you listeners definitely to attend that show. It's next Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I believe, all day long, those 3 days. You can find the agenda out on SBC's website. But definitely stop by Avi's booth. I think, stop in, say hello, hear what they have to say. It should be a good show. And I'm excited you guys are going to be there as well, Avi.
Thank you, Ryan. Likewise.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining me. Any last words you'd like to say before you leave here and go on our way?
No, nothing else. Thanks very much for letting us be part of this show, and we're looking forward to next week, and most importantly, looking forward to the next few months to see how the industry is getting out of COVID and bringing more positivity into sports and into gambling. So hopefully, in a few months, we're all going to laugh about it.
Absolutely. My pleasure having you. That was Avi Howard, the CEO of Usability Digital. Hey, thanks everybody for listening, tuning in. Hopefully you're staying safe here through all this COVID, and hopefully we'll get some sports back here soon. We'll see you guys all at the SBC Digital Summit here next week online. Be sure to be there. For now, have a great day. Avi, thanks again. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Noob Sports Show. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider subscribing to our iTunes channel today. Plus, visit us at noobsports.com for more picks, previews, strategy, and news. That's knupsports.com.